Thank you for tuning in to Local News Live, a production of AOC Community Media in partnership with the Acadiana Advocate and the Advocate at Large, our source of journalism here in the Acadiana area. We're so happy to bring you the news in audio format every Monday through Friday between 9 and 10. The Advocate does all the reporting, and we are lucky to be joined by volunteer newsreaders like Alicia Silv, who's with us this morning. Good morning, Alicia.
Good morning. Good morning. How
Uh,
are you?
I'm doing great. I'm so happy to hear your voice and to be able to hear the news, and happy you can do it from the safety of home and join us this morning. Thanks so much.
Yes, you're welcome.
All right, I'm going to go listen on Cypress Street.
Okay. So we'll be starting with high school football kickoff pushed back to October. The LHSAA unveils flexible plan offers exception to hold joint championships by Robin Fambro and Kevin Foote. After months of uncertainty and speculation, high school football's biggest question has been answered. The Louisiana High School Athletic Association unveiled a plan for an abbreviated football season tentatively set to begin October 8th following an executive committee meeting Wednesday. Later, during a Zoom news conference, LHSAA Executive Director Eddie Bonney and President David Federico revealed select schools have been invited to join LHSAA championship events in 2020 and 21 as part of a one-year COVID-19 exception designed to help simplify school operations. Select schools will be surveyed to determine whether they will accept the offer. It's ambitious, yeah, Bunny said of the fall plans. But you know what? If you're not ambitious, you don't get anything done. We want to play football. I want kids to play football. Parents want kids to play football yesterday, but we've got to do this safely. And what is the alternative here? Nothing. No sports. We've been down that ugly road in the spring, and we're going to do everything we can to prevent that from happening again. Other plans call for cross country and swimming to begin their seasons as originally scheduled August 31st. The volleyball regular season is set for September 8th based on updated calendars for each sport that were sent to schools in a Wednesday memo. Bonnie noted that all of the LHSA's fall plans are contingent on Louisiana moving from phase two to phase three of its reopening by the end of August. I truly believe we are going to bring the numbers down, Bonin said of COVID-19 cases. We've got to use the numbers. If people want to badmouth the numbers, they can, and at the end of the day, that is what we are using. Once schools get 14 days into phase three, Bonin said LHSAA will petition state officials to allow for collision drills over the next 21 days. That 21-day period would allow players' bodies time to adjust to the football collisions. The time frame also would allow for scrimmage or jamboree to be played the weekend of October 1st. First of all, we're excited that we finally have a concrete date, Karen Crow High coach Tony Corville said. Since we started on June 9th, we've been telling the kids there was going to be football. It was getting hard to stand in front of them every day and ask them to believe in what we were doing and not having something concrete for them to point towards. Now I have something concrete. With the LHSAA memo, coaches around the state started to scramble to put together a practice schedule for a season that's guaranteed to be unlike any other. The preseason already has been just that. We needed that starting date because you have to work backwards. Turling's Catholic coach Dane Charpenter said. But when you look at it, it's still over 2 months away. It's like we're back at the end of June right now. It's like a time machine. Acadiana High coach Matt McCullough said he plans on the next few weeks essentially serving a serving as a spring season for his Wrecking Rams. We're going to practice kind of like it's spring, McCullough said. We're not hitting, but we can do some stuff. The reason the football plan is ambitious is because it requires 35 days to work toward a season during a possible 42-day window that could be affected by the virus. Keep in mind that this is what we have today. We feel good about it, Bunning said. But what we can do change by something that happens tomorrow with this pandemic. Church Point High coach John Craig Arsenault said he foresees 3-day weeks for his players, not to run our kids in the dirt. Arsenault said the extra no contact practices will work wonders for his young squad, which will have 10 new starters on offense. Bonin said LHSAA schools will receive specific blueprints for each fall sport within a few days. Other key football points revealed Wednesday includes when play begins, teams would play with teams would play their week 3 opponent first. The LHSAA has models for 6 games, 7 game, and 8 game regular seasons. A 6-game regular season would likely coincide with football title games being played on their originally scheduled date of December 10th through December 12th at the Mercedes-Benz Superdome. The number of playoff teams will likely be reduced. Logistics are still being determined, but Louisiana High School Coaches Association Director Eric Held said playoff models the LHSAA is working with the models that the LHSAA is working with includes 16 and 32 teams. Held said teams that do not make the playoffs will have the option to add additional bowl game against another non-playoff qualifier. Power rankings will be used to determine playoff seeding. Bonin said that plan will evolve as if teams are forced to miss games because of COVID-19 issues. If the decision is made to extend the football season and playoffs past December 10th through 12th, and perhaps into early January, Bonin noted another site for title games would likely be involved. Bonin said early week or midweek games at the Superdome could be an option. He also added that the Superdome has end of the year obligations to other events, including the New Orleans Bowl and All-State Sugar Bowl. Other possible sites mentioned were Tulane University's Ullman Stadium, the University of Louisiana at Lafayette's Cajun Field, and Independence Stadium in Shreveport. Bonin said the LHSAA has developed specific plans to handle COVID-19 issues with scheduling, travel, and the fact that the start of school in some districts is being delayed until September. And it asked about fans attending games. Bonin said those decisions will ultimately be made by individual schools and school districts in accordance with state and Centers for Disease Control and Prevention guidelines. It's like a hurricane contraflow, Bonin said. We may all be in different lanes, but we're headed in the same direction. And for state news, state says restrictions necessary. Experts testify against challenge by businesses by Sam Carlin. Governor John Bel Edwards' administration on Wednesday sought to beat back challenges to coronavirus restrictions that shut that shuttered bars and limited social gatherings, tapping medical experts to testify that the regulations are necessary during a hearing in a lawsuit brought by Jefferson Parish business owners. The lawyers and health officials representing the governor argued the rules, which mandate masks statewide and limit business capacity, are based on sound medical advice and help tamp down cases after an alarming rise in cases and hospitalizations. The business owners challenging the order argued that Edwards is unfairly punishing bars and people whose occupations rely on in-person events like musicians with the rules that have been extended until at least August 28th. I definitely feel like I'm being discriminated against, said Ronald Dalio, the owner of Clearly Tavern in Metairie, one of the plaintiffs in the lawsuit. You cannot lump everyone in together because of the results of a few. Dr. Ronnie Whitfield, a well known Baton Rouge physician called as an expert witness, said the governor's restrictions are helping keep cases from soaring uncontrollably. He was following the science, Whitfield said. These recommendations are coming from the CDC. That's all we have to follow. Whitfield added that if the restrictions were lifted, we would probably see a lot more people die. Judge Janice Clark of Baton Rouge's 19th Judicial District set the hearing to resume at 10 a.m. Thursday after testimony stretched into the evening. The hearing comes as Edwards prepares to defend himself in court in two separate federal lawsuits in the coming week, and as the state alcohol regulator conducts hearings on four bars that have violated his order. The Office of Alcohol and Tobacco Control reinstated two of the bar's alcohol licenses Wednesday after they agreed to pay a fine and follow the rules. Edwards' attorneys cited, among other case law, a recent U.S. Supreme Court decision that held California Governor Gavin Newsom's executive action limiting attendance at churches to 25% capacity didn't violate the First Amendment. Chief Justice John Roberts, who sided with the court's liberal justices in that case, argued that courts should not second guess government officials making decisions amid a highly uncertain pandemic. The lawsuit heard Wednesday was filed by four Jefferson Parish business owners: Justin Malason, an attorney and a musician who plays at live events; Jennifer LaBella Tusa, who owns a catering and events business called The Crossing in Kenner; Natasha Sitanovic, who owns Moby's Bar and Grill in Metairie; and Dalio. Malayson is also a lawyer on the case, along with Stephen Petit of Harahan. One of the plaintiffs tested positive for the virus this week and couldn't attend, Petit said. The lawsuit seeks to declare the governor's entire executive order null in its entirety and to block enforcement of the restrictions. Edwards' administration, represented by a host of attorneys, was backed by two medical experts, including the state's top public health official, Dr. Alex Bilio, who testified his decision to shutter bars, mandate masks, and limit gatherings was necessary to help slow the spread of the virus. Bilios delved into excruciating detail describing how the health department keeps track of the virus's spread and reports to the governor, taking the stand for several hours. Ultimately, he said the restrictions at issue have worked. Cases and hospitalizations have started to come down, something Bilio said he expected if the governor mandated masks and put other restrictions in place. We are seeing the numbers go in the right direction, he said. Louisiana has recently started to see a flattening of cases after a spike in cases and hospitalizations that alarmed health experts. Edwards and the White House Coronavirus Task Force, which recommended the bar closure, mask mandate, and even more restrictive rules on gatherings and indoor dining, both attributed the improvement to the new restrictions implemented last month. The business owners challenging the mandates cited an advisory opinion issued by Republican Attorney General Jeff Landry that blasted Edwards' mask mandate, bar closure, and gathering limit. After siding with the governor early on in the pandemic, Landry has since returned to a familiar position on the opposite side of the Democratic governor. Landry issued the opinion, which is not legally binding, at the request of some of the more conservative members of the state legislature who have criticized the restrictions on businesses, calling for restrictions to be lifted. Malazone, the attorney and musician suing the governor, said he wants all businesses to be able to operate under the same rules. I want the governor to not arbitrarily set a limit, he said. Bilio said when he and other health experts started to see cases spike in June, he was worried we were having less control of COVID-19. Government and other health experts provided the governor with a deep dive into the numbers and relied on several resources when crafting the guidance, he said, including the White House Coronavirus Task Force. That task force, which sends reports to Louisiana weekly, indicated Sunday that the state should keep bars closed and continue to limit gatherings to 50 and mandate masks. Lafayette Parish schools delay start until after Labor Day by Katie Galliano. The Lafayette Parish School System announced Tuesday that it will delay the start of school until after Labor Day. The first day of school will be Tuesday, September 8th, according to a prepared statement from the school district. Lafayette Public Schools had planned to reopen in phase 2 on August 17th, with students attending classes in a hybrid model. Students would have been split into A and B groups and spent 2 to 3 days in face-to-face classes, with the rest spent learning at home virtually. While we remain confident in our ability to provide a safe and effective learning environment for our students, we have a responsibility to ensure that we take proper measures that support our community as a whole, the statement said. We believe this decision is in the best interest of all residents of Lafayette Parish. Jennifer Gardner, Chief Administrative Officer for the school system, said the decision to delay was finalized on Tuesday. She said the district has been in frequent contact with local health leaders, including hospital administrators and Dr. Tina Stefanski, Medical Director for the Region 4 Office of Public Health, to discuss daily coronavirus case numbers, community spread, hospital capacities, and pressure on the local healthcare system. Gardner said the conversations didn't explicitly focus on whether the system should open schools. We want to do our part to slow down the spread, and this is our way to do it. We're hoping this is going to help our numbers stabilize even more in our area, she said. The district frequently warned the plan would be fluid and would depend on the latest virus conditions in the community. Teachers and staff reported to school Wednesday to attend professional development training and receive additional details regarding the start of school. Gardner said she held a short meeting with principals Tuesday to inform them of the shift. Paul Bro Middle teacher Julia Reed, president of the Lafayette Parish Association of Educators, said the delay of school start is an encouraging sign the district is listening to concerned stakeholders. In an association survey, 78.2% Of the group's 450 respondents supported pushing the start of school until after Labor Day. The union represents about 1,000 educators in Lafayette Parish, roughly one-fourth of the district's employees. Reed said she was proud of the district for taking the community into consideration because possible public health reverberations from schools reopening aren't limited to families and staff within the system. Hopefully, Governor John Bel Edwards extending the state's Phase 2 order for more than 3 weeks, increased mask wearing, and other cautionary measures will allow Lafayette's COVID-19 numbers to decline, she said. It is not just students and staff members. It's also the greater community that could be placed at risk if we open school too soon. The tendrils will reach out even to people who don't have students in the school system or someone in their family who works at a school. We don't educate in isolation, Reed said. The delayed start will help relieve some mental and emotional burdens from teachers as they return to their campuses Wednesday. Teachers will have more time to adapt lesson plans to fit students at home learning environments, execute dry runs of the evolving safety protocols, and feel more secure about the return to school. Most teachers have been completing technology trainings, researching, and participating in other professional development opportunities over the summer, but nothing compares with adequate planning time on the campus, Reed said. Many teachers were concerned about having only 2 weeks to prepare on campus before classes began August 17th. It takes a lot of pressure off of them, and it's going to make it easier on them when you don't feel like you're under this looming deadline, she said. Instructional minutes requirements have not been waived, and to make up the days lost to the delay, Gardner said the district removed 2 teacher professional development days from the calendar, removed 2 parent-teacher conference days, and removed 2 vacation days at Thanksgiving, 2 at Christmas, 1 at Mardi Gras, and 4 at Easter. They also extended the end of the school year by 3 days, making students' last day May 28th instead of May 25th, she said. And in other news, emergency balloting plan being prepared. Issues expected for November 3rd election by Mark Ballard. Facing a legal challenge, Louisiana Secretary of State Kyle Ardoin said Wednesday he's about 10 days away from asking for another emergency plan to handle the marquee November 3rd elections in light of growing numbers of COVID-19 infections. Time is of the essence, and I am working in that direction, Ardoin told the Advocate and the Times-Picayune. I'm developing a plan with the thought process of us staying in phase 2. The current plan, which allowed for more voters to request absentee ballots in the July 11th primary and August 15th runoff, is set to expire after those polls close. But the coronavirus pandemic continues to surge in Louisiana. Governor John Bel Edwards on Tuesday extended phase 2, which includes closed bars and limited gatherings, along with a statewide mandate to wear a mask until August 28th. He hinted that the restrictions may last longer. Why hasn't the ball already been rolling on this, particularly since it has become a clear that COVID is not going away, said Peter Robbins Brown of the Power Coalition for Equity and Justice, a voting rights group that filed a lawsuit earlier this week in Baton Rouge federal court. Ardoin, a Republican, and Democrat Edwards were sued for failing to take action for safe and accessible voting and protect the right to vote during the upcoming November and December elections. In addition to the Power Coalition, the lawsuit was joined by 3 voters and the Louisiana State Conference of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, a civil rights organization. The plaintiffs specifically faulted the state for not extending modifications to state election law and asked for necessary protections from the pandemic, including expansion of voting by mail, to ensure safety and that those afraid of catching COVID-19 are not disenfranchised. Neither Ardoin nor Edwards could reply directly to the legal action, but the governor's office issued a statement. It is highly likely that in November we will be in the same situation we are in now, with elevated COVID-19 cases across the Louisiana, which would necessitate taking extra measures to protect the health and safety of our voters and poll workers and the voting rights of all. A request from the Secretary of State would be the first step in that process and something that the governor would support. Basically, Ardoin has to ask Edwards to declare an emergency situation for the November and December elections. The Louisiana House and Governmental Affairs and the Senate and Governmental Affairs committees would have to agree. Then the legislator asked Ardoin to present a plan. In April, the Republican majority in the legislature rejected Ardoin's initial plan as too expansive. Negotiations led to a tighter plan with fewer exceptions allowed for voting by mail. Under the compromise, voters could cast mail-in absentee ballots if they had serious medical conditions or were quarantined or taking care of someone quarantined. Ardoin had wanted to temporarily allow voting by mail for people between ages 60 and 65 or those caring for a child whose school was closed. Louisiana's absentee voting laws allowed registered voters to vote by mail, but only under certain conditions, as a military deployment, being away for college, or being 65 years of age or older. The November plan likely will require different components, Ardoin said. The plans for the primary elections, which were postponed twice, were developed while the state was under the governor's stay-at-home order. This time around, the restrictions aren't as strict. Ardoin said he is reviewing what worked and what needs improvement. The plan worked well. The voters didn't feel the need to use it as much as we thought they would, adding that only about 1,800 voters applied for mail-in ballots because of coronavirus conditions. State Senator Sharon Hewitt, the Slidell Republican, who chairs the Senate and Governmental Affairs Committee, said she has been in touch with the Secretary of State about the possibility of convening the panel within the next 2 weeks. She said she's okay with an emergency plan for the November 3rd general election and the December runoff, but not as broad as litigants want. I would not expect it to include universal mail ballot, Hewitt said Wednesday. There's not support for that in the Louisiana legislature. It's complicated by the U.S. Postal Service being so unreliable. The Postal Service is being run by Postmaster General Louis DeJoy, an ally of President Donald Trump, who is under attack for management changes that have coincided with delays in mail delivery. On the national front, Trump continued his attacks against mail-in voting. His campaign and the Republican National Committee filed a lawsuit Wednesday asking a federal court to block enforcement of Nevada's new election law allowing their voters to cast their ballots for president by mail because it would require massive changes in election procedure and processes. Excuse me. Ardoin said he likely wouldn't include more expansive mail-in ballots, given problems experienced in other states. New York, for instance, has two congressional elections still undecided after 6 weeks because of major delays of in counting a flood of 400,000 ballots mailed in for the state's June 23rd primary. In the meantime, Ardorn has been talking to the Louisiana Supreme Court to allow setting up voting machines in much larger courtrooms than the usual precinct locations in the courthouse lobby to allow for greater social distancing. He spoke with clerks around the state Tuesday to identify precincts that need expanded space and whether they can use a larger space in the same place. He's also in contact with elections officials in Michigan and Georgia who are working to set up mega sites in NBA arenas. Ardorn said he's looking at doing something similar in New Orleans' Smoothie King Center, where the Pelicans basketball team plays, to allow multiple precincts to vote in a space large enough to ensure social distancing. We can go through local government without having to go through an emergency plan, which needs legislative approval, he said of mega sites. Plan for Parks Fund may violate charter. Attorney questions attempt to separate city parish revenue by Claire Taylor. An attempt by the Lafayette City Council to separate city and parish parks and recreation money may violate the Lafayette Home Rule Charter, an attorney said Tuesday. That legal opinion by Assistant City Parish Attorney Paul Escott didn't stop the council from voting unanimously Tuesday to introduce an ordinance instructing the administration of parish Mayor President Josh Guillory to separate revenue generated in the city specifically for parks and recreation from parish generated revenue. Councilwoman Liz Hebert and Councilwomen Liz Hebert and Nanette Cook wrote the ordinance so that the city council can better track on how city generated money is spent. Property owners in Lafayette pay a property tax dedicated to parks in the city. The ballot proposition approved by voters specifically says the money the property tax generates must be spent in the city, but the money generated by the tax is mingled with parish money for parks and recreation taken from the parish general fund. There is no tax specific for parks and recreation for the parish. Although most of the money spent on parish parks and recreation is generated by the city, the parish council has authority over parks and recreation. Last week, when the parish council refused to introduce an ordinance proposed by the city council that would have restored funding to keep 4 recreation centers in the city open, city council members realized they need to have more control over the city's parks funding. Hebert said the parish contributes only $40,000 per year to parks and recreation, compared with millions the city contributes. We should not be funding in any way anything in the parish, she said. Cook said the tipping point for her was last week when the parish council stopped all discussion about the recreation centers. To me, that's not right, she said. That discussion should be on the city side. This ordinance, she said, states the conversation on separating city funds from parish funds. In December 2018, voters approved a Home Rule Charter amendment splitting the city parish council into separate city and parish councils, which was supposed to give the city council more autonomy and authority over issues affecting only the city. Those councils took office in January and are facing their proposed budget and beginning to address how the new form of government will operate. Escott, who said he was not consulted on the ordinance, said it appears to violate two or three sections of the charter. The first section, the first, section 211E, says ordinances dealing with subject matter under the legislative authority of both councils must be approved by both councils, including items in the operating budget that arise out of the shared operations, facilities, and employees. Section 5-04A of the Charter, dealing with amendments to the operating budget, also may be violated with the proposed City Council ordinance, as Scott said. It states that amendments to the operating budget are to be adopted by a favorable vote of both councils, except that an amendment to the operating budget for a line item or component unit funded solely by the city should be voted on solely by the City Council. It should be noted that Guillory did not seek a vote of councils, as Section 5-04A requires, to amend the current fiscal year's operating budget, cutting funding for 4 recreation centers and 37 parks and recreation employees. Nor did the mayor president obtain a vote of the councils for previous cuts to the operating budgets of the Hyman Performing Arts Center, Lafayette Science Museum, and Acadiana Nature Station, and the elimination of 101 jobs. The third section of the charter Escott cited, Section 4-17, deals with administrative reorganizations and gives the mayor president the authority to abolish, combine, or alter departments within Lafayette Consolidated Governments. That section of the charter requires both councils to vote on an alteration or reorganization unless the area falls solely under the authority of the city council. I wonder if we're violating the charter by spending city funds outside the city, asked City Councilman Glenn Lazard, an attorney. I'd like legal opinion on that. On Tuesday afternoon, in a news release, Parish Council Chairman Kevin Naquin called a special meeting for 5 p.m. Monday to consider contributing $200,000 in parish money to operate for 1 year 4 recreation centers in North Lafayette that Guillory announced in July would be closed by August 14th to save money. The proposed closures in largely Black, economically challenged neighborhoods drew outcry and protest. Since then, Guillory has said he would find a way to keep the centers open. He issued a request for proposals for businesses or groups to operate the centers. The parish council would use $200,000 of $2 million in parish funds voters rededicated to parks and recreation from a parish library support surplus. City Councilman Andy Naquin started off opposed to the Aber-Cook ordinance, but relented and voted in favor of it just to introduce it. The ordinance returns to the council in 2 weeks for final adoption. Both councils will discuss the parks and recreation budget for the fiscal year that begins November 1st at a budget review meeting at 1 p.m. Thursday. Public input is allowed. And moving on, Lafayette Parish School Board, $1.5 million devoted to Student Internet Initiative. Public-private partnership aims to expand access, by Katie Gagliano. The Lafayette Parish School Board allocated $1.5 million Tuesday toward providing short-term internet connectivity solutions for students without internet access as part of a public-private partnership with local philanthropists and businesses. The board members voted 5-1 on 2 items. to transfer $615,000 from the Capital Projects Reserve Fund for 2021 to 22 projects to help resolve internet connectivity issues and to amend the Special Revenue Fund budget to recognize $1.25 million in federal coronavirus aid money. The funding included $429,000 and $429,047 from the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund and $823,406 from the Governor's Emergency Education Relief Fund. The board agreed to combine the $615,000 from the Capital Projects Reserve with an estimated $345,000 from the Emergency Relief Fund and $540,000 from the Governor's Fund to meet students' internet needs through Link and Learn, a partnership with Love Our Schools. Access to home internet will be critical in the coming months as students prepare to return to school September 8th on a hybrid schedule, with 2 to 3 days spent in the classroom and the remainder spent learning at home using digital resources. The district has also warned that families should be prepared to transition to a fully virtual plan at a moment's notice if coronavirus cases surge and the state must revert to a phase one reopening plan. Ryan Domingo, CEO of the William C. Schumacher Family Foundation, said the new Link and Learn initiative is focused on a diversified approach to short-term internet solutions, including Wi-Fi hotspots for transient or homeless students, Wi-Fi enabled buses that can be deployed in communities, increasing Wi-Fi reach at school sites, and partnering with businesses to make their internet accessible to students in need. He estimated 7,000 Lafayette students in roughly 5,000 households are without home internet access. Numbers based on a spring survey the school system conducted of its student population, district spokeswoman Allison Dickerson said. Domingo said he, Todd Mouton of the Pew Family Foundation, and Anna Osland of One Acadiana have coordinated with the school system, internet service providers LUS Fiber, Cox, and AT&T, and roughly 30 to 40 community and business partners in the past 2 months on the initiative. We worked really hard with the school district to be able to come to this point in our community where we can say we did something tonight that is so innovative that others will look to us as leaders in our community, in our region, and in the state, Domingo said. Before Tuesday's announcement, the Link and Learn initiative brokered agreements for low-cost internet options for families starting at $10 a month through LUS Fiber, Cox, and AT&T. Each company has its own qualification process to determine who can purchase the service. After Tuesday's board meeting, they're planning to bring home internet a step further by covering the cost of internet service for low-income families. Domingo said he believes within 60 days they can extend Wi-Fi services to needy families operating off the 5,000 households estimate. Until then, they'll rely on hotspots, the Wi-Fi enabled buses, and other avenues to provide internet connections. Exact specifications for which families will qualify to have district-supported internet were not available on Tuesday. The district-sponsored internet will be filtered, so students will be able to access only websites and online materials for learning purposes. It'll be like accessing the internet at a school site, he said. The ideal is we're not providing resources for parents to get on and surf on the internet and use Netflix or take the services away from the children. This is us providing a hand up on a short term basis so children can access technology just like any other kid can access technology and the internet throughout the school district, Domingo said. The activity limitations were laid out in an opinion from Attorney General Jeff Landry dated July 30th. The opinion said there's legitimate reason to provide internet connectivity for students under certain parameters, while the school system is requiring at home online learning, but device based and internet provider limits must be established to filter the content being accessed. The opinion was requested by the school board in an 8-0 vote at the July 22nd board meeting. The opinion paved the way for the school system to devote funds to students' internet access. The second thrust of Lincoln Learn's mission is to build a long term solution to affordable internet access for students. Domingo said the Love Our Schools team is working with partners like InfoLink, a telecommunications solutions company, to build a 4G, 5G Wi Fi overlay network that will be broadly accessible and allow access to filtered internet service for academic work. The Love Our Schools partners have put forward $400,000 in seed money to pilot the network in the 70501 zip code, which covers North Lafayette roughly from University Avenue north to Interstate 10, west to the Vermilion River, and south to Lafayette Regional Airport. Domingo said the goal is to have the initial overlay network operating by Christmas. If successful, they'll help the school system devise a funding scheme to extend the network across the parish. In 24 months, we can probably say we're one of the first communities, certainly one of the first school districts in the country, where a child can walk out from their home in the middle of a cane field with an attachment to their iPad and connect to free Wi Fi to get academic learning, Domingo said. Paul Bro Middle teacher Julia Reed, president of the Lafayette Parish Association of Educators, voiced her organization's support for the measures because the digital divide is a problem that teachers face in the classroom constantly, she said. Some students have the means to access additional learning resources at home, while others lack technology to meet basic assignment requirements. Reed recalled a young student so determined to complete a school essay, he typed the entire assignment on an iPhone. He didn't have a computer or internet access at home, but he was nervous to ask Reed for an extension on the assignment. Can you imagine if he did have a computer and internet at his house? If he was so determined and so motivated to get it done that he typed the whole thing on his iPhone, what could he do if he had the tools he needed to succeed? Imagine what that could mean to students, she said. Tommy Angel was the lone vote against the two measures, while board members Justin Santani, Kate Bailey LeBou, and Britt Latchley were absent for both votes. Angel said after the board meeting he'd prefer families have some skin in the game and make at least a partial financial contribution to the internet cost. Internet connectivity is one piece to the back to school puzzle. The school system is also looking for a solution to student device back orders. Roughly 3,700 devices were purchased with federal funds to provide every student in the district a device, such as an iPad or Chromebook. But at the July 22nd school board meeting, Superintendent Irma Trosclair announced devices for kindergarten through second grade students were back ordered and may not arrive until November. Dickerson and staff estimated Tuesday the backlog is equivalent to about 2,200 devices. She said staff members are working on a plan to identify students willing to bring personal devices from home for their schoolwork, and school supported devices would be allocated to other students who do not own personal computers. District administrators believe there will be enough students bringing personal devices to effectively cover students in need of school supported devices through resource shuffling until the back ordered devices arrive. Staff members also said they're exploring changing their device orders because some products are more readily available than others and could be delivered within weeks rather than months. In other news, a man arrested after standoff with deputies. A man was arrested after a Wednesday morning standoff with Lafayette Parish Sheriff's deputies on Evangeline Thruway. Donald Guidry, 42, was arrested on counts of possession of stolen things and resisting arrest after a standoff with law enforcement that lasted more than 1 hour. Guidry was spotted at about 10 a.m. by Broussard police officers driving a tan truck reported stolen out of Vermilion Parish in the 4100 block of US 90 East. The vehicle was reported stolen Sunday. Deputies attempted to conduct a traffic stop and Guidry fled, eventually coming to stop at the intersection of East Willow Street and Northeast Evangeline Thruway. He refused to exit his vehicle and told law enforcement officers he was armed and may hurt himself. Sheriff's Office spokesman Captain John Mowell said Guidry was observed swallowing pills during the standoff. At one point, SWAT officers fired a non-lethal round into Guidry's vehicle to shatter his window so negotiators could communicate with him. At about 11:30 a.m., law enforcement officers persuaded Guidry to surrender. A knife was found in his possession during the surrender, and once in custody, he was taken to a hospital for medical treatment and evaluation before he was booked into the Lafayette Parish Correctional Center. Officers negotiate with the driver of a truck that was reported stolen Sunday during a standoff following a pursuit Wednesday. Let's see here. And Lafayette filmmaker wins French Culture Grant, $25,000 to fund project about race immigration by Megan Wyatt. After spending 2 years in Los Angeles in his early 20s and the next decade mostly filming commercials in his hometown of Lafayette, Logan LeBlanc is making his directing debut with a more creative endeavor, a narrative short film that recently won a $25,000 French Culture Grant. It's tough being a creative in Lafayette and Louisiana sometimes because you have to convince people that there's merit in the work you're doing, he said. People tend to think of the creative community as frivolous sometimes. It's hard to quantify what we do for the money, so grant is amazing. This grant is amazing. It shows us that there's someone out there who cares about creatives. I don't think any of us got into this for commercials, even though that's what pays the bills. We got into this to tell stories, and this grant puts value to that. LeBlanc's film, 17-Year Locust, tells the story of a struggling immigrant in South Louisiana who takes a job as a caregiver to a dying woman. She shares with him a secret that casts a haunting shadow on the American life that he has desperately been pursuing. LeBlanc, 37, drew on a real-world friendship as he developed a script and pitched it for Create Louisiana's annual French Cultural Film Grant. As LeBlanc observed his friend, a Haitian immigrant, assimilate to the culture and customs of South Louisiana, LeBlanc seemed to find parallels between the man's experience and that of his own Acadian ancestors. Not only is he this Haitian French-speaking person in Lafayette who also has to deal with people questioning parts of his life, LeBlanc says, but it is also mirrored the Cajun thing. Cajuns are kind of fish out of water. There was an aspect of fear and keeping guarded and limited what you let in. There's also this super warm and that inviting side of all of that as well. But I guess an outsider will say getting into and being part of that circle of friends is tough. The short film, which run about 15 minutes, centers around a Haitian immigrant in the South Louisiana named Rene, who is trying to shed his culture and assimilate to his new life. He doesn't plan to teach his baby French, instead focusing on English and American customs. Let's see. Today is today in history. Today is Thursday, August 6th, the 219th day of 2020. There are 147 days left in this year. Today's highlight in history: on August 6, 1945, during World War II, the US B 29 superfortress Enola Gay dropped an atomic bomb codenamed Little Boy on Hiroshima, Japan, resulting in an estimated 140,000 deaths. 3 days later, the United States exploded a nuclear device over Nagasaki. 5 days after that, the Imperial Japan surrendered. Today's birthdays: children performer Ella Jenkins is 96, actor Dorian Harewood is 70, actor Catherine Hicks is 69, country singers Patsy and Peggy Lynn are 56, country singer Lisa Stewart is 52, singer actor David Campbell is 47, rock singer Travis McCoy is 39, actor Leslie Odom Jr. is 39, rock musician Eric Roberts is 36. Deaths in the Acadiana area: Percy Albee will be held at First Baptist Church in Lafayette at 11 a.m. Charlotte Jeffers to be held at St. Michael the Archangel Catholic Church, located at 224 West 5th Street in Crowley at 2 p.m. And Janice Pratt to be held at Asbury United Methodist Church in Lafayette at 11:30 a.m. We have a little time for some zodiacs. Leo, put your energy where it counts most, and you'll make a difference to the outcome of a situation that concerns you. Romance is in the stars and will improve your personal life. Virgo, the best course of action is to enforce a change that encourages better relationships. Stick to basics as well as the rules and move forward judiciously. Libra, keep busy and finish what you start. Your reputation will depend on attitude and your ability to get things done correctly and on time. Don't make personal changes that affect your appearance. Scorpio, use your imagination and you'll develop a plan that is both cost efficient and enjoyable. A creative endeavor will be enlightening and encourage greater discipline. Sagittarius, the personal changes you make should include the people you care about most. Don't let an outsider come between you and someone you love. Analyze an incident before you get involved. Capricorn, use your energy wisely and make a point to be positive, accommodating, and efficient. Leave a good impression and you'll gain respect. Aquarius, proceed down the path that will bring you the most in return. Personal gains look promising if your intelligence and imagination get ahead. Pisces, the people you encounter will give you a different perspective on life. A change someone close to you makes will disappoint you. Be honest about the way you feel. Aries, don't leave anything to chance and it will make your quest a lot easier to achieve. Don't allow emotional issues to stand between you and doing what's right. Taurus, how you attack a project or responsibility will be what counts in the end. Don't let temptation or interference get in the way of your success. Make your position clear and strive for consistency. And that has been our news for the morning. Thanks for tuning in.